You're listening to Errol Parker and Clancy Overall, editors of the Betoota Advocate on Desert Rock FM. Welcome back to the Betoota Advocate radio show, recording live on Desert Rock FM. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are in the world, be that on the wireless or on your assorted, respected podcast platforms. You're joined by myself, Clancy Overall, and of course Errol Parker, back in the booth with an exciting one this week, an exciting guest.
Yeah, no, I'll let you do all the plain Janes over the break, but it's good to get back in the booth with someone who's actually worth listening to.
Yep, we're going to learn a lot today about the world we live in, about the Deep South, the Harbour City. There's a lot to learn. It seems like if you live in a regional area or in a irrelevant metropolitan area like Brisbane or Adelaide, you might not know what's going on in the world. The fact of the matter is, the property market in Australia is red hot to trot, and there's only a certain number of people who really know what they're talking about when it comes to selling, buying property. Houses I'm talking about. We talk resis. I'm not talking about commercials. I got plenty of warehouses at the back of Betoota. That we're talking about something else here. And today's guest can tell us everything. We're very honoured to be joined by, I guess, somewhat of a Eastern Suburbs icon, Simon Cohen. Thank you for joining us.
What a welcome, guys. Thank you very much. It's quite an intro. It's good to be here.
No, so I think a lot of people in our part of the world, in southwest Queensland, they're very familiar with the stock and station agent, which is probably something you don't have down there in Sydney, but most people out here would like to be in your industry. They know what a real estate agent is, but you're not one of those. What is a buyer's agent?
The old stock and station license, huh?
Yeah.
A buyer's agent's almost the flip side of a real estate agent. So you've got a real estate agent who represents the person selling. We represent the person buying. So we go out and we find every opportunity. We source them, and we get the price down as low as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So some would say you're almost like a superhero in this world of real estate, bending over the enemy of the people, which is the real estate agent. How long has this role been around? And can you tell us, is it a new thing in relation to a changing market?
Articulated perfectly, by the way. Is it a new thing? I mean, I started this business in 2009. Buyer's agents were not a known thing back then. The look on people's faces when I said I'm starting a buyer's agency or I am a buyer's agent was one of shock and horror. As the years have gone on, it has become a lot more prevalent. I think when I started, it was probably 0.00000.1% of people use buyer's agents. Now it's a very high percentage. You know, you go to an auction and say there's 5 bidders, 3 of them are probably represented by a buyer's agent. So as the years have gone on, you know, representation for buyers has gotten a lot stronger, and that's something that we're very proud of. So yeah, they're a lot more prevalent now. And, you know, it's not just a market thing. I think it's just become a process thing. We're now part of the process.
First time I heard the term, the role, the title, buyer's agent was probably in southeast Queensland during the mining boom. A lot of blokes working in coal mines, gold mines, copper mines with a lot of cash. They were buying houses sight unseen through blokes who do not dress like you. We'd say they kind of looked like suburban salesmen.
Right. Yep.
Who, you know, kind of looked like car dealers at that time. And I guess this might have been an early iteration. The mining boom was probably just a bit before you opened up shop. These guys, obviously, it was a different kind of money. It was a different kind of market.
Yeah.
But they were buying it sight unseen. I don't think that was a result of them having trust in these buyer's agents, but I think it was just a result of them having money and needing assets.
Yeah, there are lots of people driving Land Cruisers around mines in Queensland who own a lot of off-the-plan apartments in outer metro areas in Brisbane.
Which possibly weren't the best things to buy.
Yeah. I mean, there was money to move, and there were people that put their hands up to help them move it. That wasn't trust. They were buying sight unseen. Do you have that kind of trust with the people you work with that they would buy something sight unseen via you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing for us is trust, and hopefully we don't dress like those used car salesmen you were pointing to earlier. But I think for us, experience, market knowledge should equal the trust that our clients have in us. And, a lot of the deals we do are for people who are overseas and they buy sight unseen. And that is you're buying someone a house for $15 million that they've never seen. That's trust.
With this trust thing, all right, people trust you with their money. They trust that their money's going to the right place. Why wouldn't you just sell houses?
What do you mean? Why wouldn't I just sell?
Why did you choose buyer's agent instead of a real estate agent? As we did mention before, they are the villains. But
well, let's put that aside. There's 1,000 real estate agents.
Yeah.
And when I started this business, I was like, everyone focuses on the seller, but without the buyer, there is no deal, right? You need the buyer for a transaction to happen. And so I wanted to create a business that looks after the buyer and acts in the buyer's best interests and a point of difference. And that's how come this concept and this idea and this business, Cohen Handler, was born.
Had you worked as a real estate agent before moving into being a buyer's agent?
Yeah, for 5 years I was a real estate agent. I've seen the dark side. I've seen things, guys.
The dark arts.
You can't unsee.
So what moment made you see the light?
I was dealing with a lot of buyers and I could only sell them the stock that my office had. And I felt I became very salesy. And listen, I love real estate agents. I got a lot of them as my mates, but I felt like I became very real estate agenty. And I was just like, there's so much more out there I could offer them if I was doing this differently. And I also had like a passion to build an office and a brand with a culture that was cool, that people wanted to come to work at. And so it was kind of those two things. I then went to live in LA for just under a year because 80% of people in the States use buyer's agents. Yep. And I was like, wow. You know what? I got to bring this back to Australia.
Yeah. You saw it happening well and truly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit, what's your patch? I mean, we said you're an icon, the king of Eastern Sydney, king of Bondi, whatever. What is your actual patch, though? Where do you do your best work?
Well, I've got offices in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, so all over. Me personally, my patch is the high end. It's eastern suburbs, it's the North Shore, it's the top end of town. It's typically where my clients are, and I'm lucky enough to be dealing in these sort of mega mansions.
Could you give us a bit of a snapshot of what type of person your client is? Like, are they looking for a family home or are they looking for something they can turn a buck on?
Oh, they're everyone. Typically, it's a family home or a luxury apartment. My particular client is not typically someone they can turn a buck on, but I want to make sure that whatever we buy, they can flick it and turn a buck on it. But typically, it's somewhere they're going to live for a long time. Yeah. And it's something, when you're spending 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million bucks on a house, you've typically worked a long time to earn that. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Your house is the thing you're in that you're most proud of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's something that they want to stay in for a long time.
What gets you the most excited, like in terms of someone you're working with? Someone walks in your door. What really gets your blood pumping? I'm talking about the archetypes of buyers, right? Say you've got like a 55-year-old divorcee who's just moved back from Singapore for the first time in 20 years. Is that what really gets you going? You reckon we can do some work here?
No, I get on with all sorts of different people, not just divorcees. So that's not what just gets me going. You know what? I like the ones who are a challenge.
Yeah.
The ones who come in and they're like, why the hell would I use you? I know every agent. I know every property. I can do this on my own. Then they go out and they do it. And it's that challenge showing them that they really needed us. Our business, someone said this to me the other day, whether you like it or not, if you want to buy a property, and they were referring to the eastern suburbs and the top end, you got to use me, right? Because it's very difficult. 85% of stuff I buy is off market. Yeah. So I love the challenge of someone who's very cocky, and I can prove them wrong. And they're then happy that they were proved wrong. Married or divorced, just for the record.
Yeah. But there are cash cows out there.
Yeah.
So could you talk us through the process of what a buyer's agent does? So you've got a client that comes to you and says, for example, I want to live on Wolseley Road near where Malcolm Turnbull lives.
Yep.
And this is my budget.
So let's say they want to live in Double Bay or Point Piper and they're looking for a 4-bedroom house, 3 bathrooms, 2 parking.
Yep.
They want a view. They want to see the Australian Federal Police cards of Malcolm Turnbull. We would go out and we would find everything that exists in Double Bay and Point Piper. That's 4 beds, 3 baths, parking, view of the police cars.
What, on market and off market?
On market, off market, pre-market, post-market, discounted.
And that's just through your networks.
Everything that's out there. Like I said, 85% of that at the moment's not advertised stuff.
Yep.
So we'd go out and we'd find everything. We'd shortlist the stuff that meets the requirements, that ticks the boxes. We'd flick it through to you. Anything you like, I'm giving you the podcast version here.
Yeah.
Anything you like, we kind of do the due diligence on it. So like what it's worth, why it's worth that, what a bargain is, what a top dollar is, all that sort of stuff. Are they going to build a block of flats that's going to block your view of Malcolm Turnbull's house? All of that due diligence.
Yeah.
And then the fun shit begins. We roll up our sleeves, get out the boxing gloves and put a strategy in place to sort of get it for as cheap as possible. So that's the process.
Like, you could even go there and door knock. And say,
we door knock, cold call.
We have an extremely motivated buyer for your property.
Or we just have a buyer who...
Are you ready to downsize?
Or upsize.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that Wild West, where you actually get to do things that real estate agents don't get to do, which is, like, does it happen like this? You drive past a place and go, that's it. This is what they want. Get out of the car and knock on the door?
Dude, I've woken up, once I did this deal in Bellevue Hill, I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I was like, you know what? I've just thought of the perfect house for my clients. And it wasn't for sale. I called the owner at 6 a.m. He's like, it's weird that you've called. I'm moving to Hong Kong. I will actually sell my house. And we ended up buying it, right? They bought that house. We bought it for 9.5. They ended up selling it for 18.5 because we moved into something else. So they actually did turn a buck. But it happens more often than not.
That's
that's
quite a buck they turned on it.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to earn that much money is on.
And it's tax free too.
Is on the couch while your house goes up in value.
Yeah.
Tell me, that's what I want to talk to you about. It's like, everyone looks at someone like Babe Ruth, right? Babe Ruth has all these records. Babe Ruth is the greatest baseballer of all time. Babe Ruth also wasn't playing against any kids from Cuba or Puerto Rico. All of these different challenges that are now in the game, he was just basically playing baseball against fat old New Yorkers. You're in a market that's very much like Babe Ruth's market back then. Admittedly, the housing property boom, you'd started before that, 2009.
We started in the GFC.
Yeah, you started in the GFC.
Half time to start. You try extracting cash from people in a GFC for a service they'd never heard of.
Yeah. Where, this is the worst crisis that most of them have ever lived through.
And a service that didn't exist that you got to pay for.
Yeah. So the streets of eastern suburbs were still clean back then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how do you reckon you would have fared in 1990s Bondi when they hadn't redirected the sewerage? You know what I mean? When we still had gangs of youths roaming the streets.
Probably Bondi wouldn't have been my patch then.
No. Yeah. Okay. So this is your work, high end.
Yeah, our office does everything from $500,000 upwards. But for me, the clientele I've attracted have typically been the who's who of town, the real high end, and so it's just kind of where they want to live.
Can you tell us some of the funny requests you've also got to wrangle? Do you get something as trivial as, a buyer saying, I don't want to live next door to a South Sydney Rabbitohs supporter? Do you ever get those kind of, or they don't talk about that?
No, look, the East is a small place, so typically it's like, I don't want to live next door to someone I know.
Yeah.
They don't love that friend so much.
Yeah. Someone I've done business with in the past or that kind of stuff.
I've had some weird requests, man. People are weird. Like, there's just no question about it.
Tires every Sunday.
People are cooked.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of that. Does it get quite primal when you're talking that kind of money? Like, well, I'm not going to spend that much money if I have to live with this slight inconvenience next door.
I think most people are accustomed to how insane the market is in Sydney. So they know that there's going to be some sort of compromise. The compromise might not be living next door to that person or looking into the roofs of that house. But there are always compromises.
Yeah. Now, we've seen you on Luxe Listing Sydney, cult following, King of the East, etc., etc. Your family kind of gets a start in it too. How did they all feel about that? Dinner with the family, cameras.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think they ever set out, any of us ever set out to be on TV or have any sort of fame. But my mum's like just got this huge following from the show. People love her, and so it's so nice. Like, she works so hard, and she's my mum, so I'm quite direct with her most of the time. But like, it's so nice to like be at a cafe or a restaurant and like people come up to her and they're like, "Oh my God, we love you," you know. So they like she'll be at Woolies and people will scream out, you know, "Love you, can I have a photo?" So it's been cool to show, I guess, our real life and who we are, and so you know you can't really argue about that.
I mean, you obviously were operating well before this program. I want to go back before Luxe listing Sydney. People want to know, when we're dealing with this kind of money, your stripes. Like, and your stripes exist now on paper. You can show what they've sold and, you know, the kind of deals you've done. Can you tell us some of the learning curves, maybe GFC era or, you know, early, that you learnt, you know, to bang yourself into shape to be, you know, who you are now?
The first lesson I ever learned, I learned 2 lessons, and actually from the same deal. The first house I ever sold, this is when I was a real estate agent. I was 20 years old. I grew up in the North Shore. I was working in the eastern suburbs. I had a buyer, a friend looking to buy a big house.
It was a friend.
From school, you know, because when you're 20, like her parents were moving to the eastern suburbs, you got to get whoever you can, right? Yeah. This was an amazing lesson for me. And I door knocked all these houses, and I door knocked this house in Vaucluse. I was a 20-year-old little pimple-faced guy, and the owner invited me in, and we started talking. And this is a long time ago, where the gods of real estate were the guys that would sell these properties. Like this was when I was 20, so like 18 years ago, and this was a $10 million house 18 years ago,
so
right?
This would be like
so now this would be like a 30, 40, $50 million house. I ended up listing and selling that house, my first ever deal, for $9.8 million. And what happened was, I rocked up to it with my boss at the time, who was a seasoned guy, had been around a long time. We pulled up at the front of this house. We're out the front. The house is to my left. My boss is to my right. I turn to him. I'm like, "Let's go door knock it." He turns to me and he says, "Simon, you're wasting your time. There's no way we're ever going to get this listing right." I say, "You wait here. I'm going to do it." My heart's pumping. I'm walking up to the door, but I'm like, you know what? If he spits in my face, he spits in my face. Like I said, I ended up listing it. And so the first lesson I learned is never say never, because it doesn't matter who you are, how old, what you look like, your experience. If you connect with someone, you connect with them. The next lesson I learned was who I sold that house to. The guy rocked up in a Holden Commodore. Good car.
Yeah,
I think it was
beautiful.
I don't even think it was an SS. It was just a standard commie.
Poison Ivy.
And no one took him seriously. And I met him at an open for inspection, and he's like, "You got to help me find a house because no one's taking me seriously." Everyone was very judgmental. If you drove a Commodore,
the leafy North Shore.
you know, you weren't someone who's buying a $10 million house. So I listed this house. I called him straight away. He came to look at it in his Holden Commodore. The next time he came to look at it, he came with a check for $1 million, gave me a deposit, bought the house for $10 million, pulled the house down and rebuilt it.
King.
He was the head of Barclays Bank.
Right.
And the lesson I learned from that was never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
So I
might
learned
just be
from
a
a
cover
young
guy.
age. And then ever since then, I've just learned that those clients from then are still my clients today. You know, loyalty is a huge thing. And if you treat people the right way with respect, like everyone should be treated, people are going to come back to you and use you and use you and use you. So there have been some amazing life lessons, but I'd say they're the best 2.
Yeah, look, I was just about to ask you, because I've asked a lot of people this, but did you ever have like a big break? Like something that changed everything?
Look, I'd say that first deal was my big break, not because it was a huge deal, but because it proved to me that I could do anything I wanted to do. Like if I wanted to tap into the top end, you know, that was my big break. Anything else since then was hard as fuck. Like, firstly, people hated me because I was 20 and I did a deal that they had been trying to do their whole careers. Then I started a business in the GFC that no one knew what it was. So nothing else was a big break. But to me, if I had to say what was one, it was that, because that gave me the mindset to do everything else I've done.
Yeah.
You have a bit more responsibility than a real estate agent. Real estate agent, for the most part, apart from, you know, maybe criminal negligence, a real estate agent could sell a house that gets all moldy once the windows closed.
They're glorified door openers.
Yeah, but they also
Take it or leave it, boys.
They sell it and then they're out. You don't hear from them again. You've got clients who are going to follow you up if it ends up being, a dud. Can you tell us about some of those anxieties that come through your mind when you have got this amount of money that you've got to do something with, and you want it to be something, you want them to come back afterwards anyway? You're not like the real estate agent who sells 100%. Them out the door. What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about asbestos in the roof?
We're thinking about everything.
Yeah.
We're thinking about if they ever need to sell this tomorrow, are they going to get out of it?
Yeah.
What's it going to cost them to fix it up if there's anything they need? If it's brand new, have they done a cheap job? Is a view ever going to be built out? Every aspect of it, the way I've always done it, and I think that's why it's worked, is because every house I've ever bought, I look at it as if I was buying it with my own money. And that's how I advise my clients. And of course I've had clients I bought 10 properties for because it's that doing the right thing by them. Me and one of the guys I work with, Tom, we just bought this really nice old couple, this amazing apartment on the water, and they called Tom last night being like, the ice maker, we can't get it to work. We can't get the ice maker to work. Something's wrong with it. So Tom's like, I'll be over at 7:30 tomorrow morning. He actually went there this morning and just realized that you had to hit the on button. But that's our level of service. We want to help our clients, and we want them to come back and back and back. And those clients, we had bought their son a house, and hopefully we'll buy the rest of their family. So that for us is the thrill.
Yeah, where I suppose if your ice machine was broken and you called the real estate agent, he'd just be like, call a technician.
I don't think he probably wouldn't answer the phone, to be honest.
How the hell is this my problem?
Sorry, whose number is this? New phone.
So the real estate agent once upon a time would have to weigh up a market as in this is cheap. This is a cheap area and it might be nice. Nowadays they're saying, look at the trajectory. This is fucking expensive and it's going to be even more expensive after you buy it. Tell us about the property market, because that's a big concern as well. Do you have faith in this kind of vortex that, particularly in Sydney, do you have faith that this thing's going to keep moving the right way? And if you ever do get the jitters, how do you communicate that with a buyer?
I stupidly have not had faith, and it has held me back buying more property for myself and selling property myself. And I wish I had never sold, and I wish I had bought more, because every time I thought, you do get, I don't now, but I used to get sucked into the media and all that bullshit. And now, having done this for so long through so many markets, we are in a bubble, in a very protected, very safe market. Real estate is the safest asset in Australia. It's the most desired asset. And I have just seen in all these years, no one's ever come to me, and I have dealt with thousands of people saying, I'm so happy I waited to buy. Everyone's always said, I wish I had bought then. I wish I had bought then. I wish I had bought that. Why did I not go an extra 10,000 on this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I always say to my clients, if it's the right property and the price seems right, just do it. Yeah. That's what I do now. I don't care if I'm stupid, because if I want something, I'll just pay for it. But the market never crashes here.
Yep. So in your mind, detached from the media and the domain and all those,
I don't read it.
You don't read it. You're detached from it.
Do
you think it's sustainable?
Yes.
Yep.
I think the heat's come out a bit.
Yep.
And it has, but you're not going to see a property that was 3 million go to 2 million. It might go to 2.8 million. But what's worse, if it goes to 2.8 million or it goes to 3.5 million? Yeah. And what's happened in the past is it's gone to 3.5 million. So listen, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of delusional owners out there, fucking idiots, who are way overpriced. Yeah. But if they're priced right, it'll move.
Yeah. And then so that's an exciting place to be, obviously, especially in your role or even in that of a real estate agent. But there is also the excitement that I guess when you're in these markets you're kind of missing, which is the gold mines. You know what I mean? Like the eastern suburbs is diamonds. What about the gold mines? And you said you're right around the country. Where would you point to right now as in terms of a market? Is it the Northern Rivers, or are there even lesser known kind of places ready to pop? Yamba.
A magician never gives away his tricks.
That's all right. No,
but what I will say to you is this. I like to buy in blue chip areas or areas where there's always going to be reasons why people want to live there. Infrastructural reasons why there'll be growth, even if the market doesn't grow, if that makes sense. Yeah. So Whether you're in Sydney or Brizzy or Melbourne or Perth or Adelaide, if you're in an area where people are going to want to live, then they're my tricks that I'll give away.
There's always going to be people with money until this world ends.
Yeah.
And they will be prepared to part with it to live where they want.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what the excitement, because you always remember South Sydney popping off, and that's an exciting game to play as well, as opposed to this has been doing well for 20 years and it's going to keep doing well.
Mate, listen, I live in Elizabeth Bay, and growing up, I don't think I ever wanted to go to Elizabeth Bay. Places change and they gentrify, and the smart people are the ones who get in early. But I think anything that's on a city fringe, and you look at, let's use Redfern, it's a city fringe, it's always going to gentrify. Alexandria, because all that's going to happen is you're going to have the centre and it's just going to spread out. And so the closer it is to the spread, the more desirable it's going to be.
Does it get a bit tricky? I mean, New York City,
Yep.
good example. Rent freeze, they have rent control in certain aspects blended into apartment buildings.
Yep.
That is to maintain services in the city, the firemen, the teachers. Is there an issue? Is there a potential risk of Sydney or Melbourne becoming a city where everyone who works in town has to come from 2 hours out? Or do you think Sydney has a good balance of that kind of affordable and high end?
I don't know. Look, I can't comment on population growth.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But, I do often wonder how the everyday man can afford to buy a place in blue chip Sydney. If you're a young couple,
Yeah.
average price, you're buying a place for 1.5.
Yeah.
You got to save 350, 400,000 bucks and live.
Yeah. And their parents are broke.
Yeah.
It's bloody tough.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it.
Yeah.
And so I do think people will move further and further away, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because to live around here, you got to have a lot of money.
Yeah. It's a thing that Sydney, I guess, is always in waves. King's Cross has been good, it's been bad, it's been good, it's been bad. But I don't see the current trajectory degentrifying the way that has happened. I mean,
All you have to do is have a look at the DAs in place for luxury apartments that are going to be the whole of King's Cross.
Yeah.
And you'll pretty quickly get an idea.
Yeah.
Places, we're not going to have zombies come in and places are going to turn into a war zone.
Yeah.
They're going to gentrify, not degentrify.
Well, I'd say, is there anything that you can see taking the heat out of the national property market? Aside from, as we were saying, preemptive first strike against us by some foreign power where, there is, a nuclear device is...
But besides that...
It goes off in Sydney.
yeah,
which,
COVID couldn't do it.
COVID made the market boom. I've never seen a boom quite like that in my life before. Besides that apocalypse you speak of, there's only two things. A huge amount of supply coming on the market and interest rates going to a level that is beyond what the banks have built in as their safeguard. Both I'd be very shocked about.
But you're still dealing with people who don't really.
Most of my clients, they're their own banks. But still, we deal with a lot of normal people.
Yeah.
Interest rates. I mean, I know when my parents moved to Australia, interest rates were 18%. If they were 18% now, I think 90% of people will put their house on the market.
I think there'd be a lot more.
18%. Well, I mean,
there would certainly
houses did cost the same as a RAV4. But
That was 1986, and a house. Yeah, in the North Shore was $450,000. That's now stamp duty on a normal house in the East. So times have changed.
Pretty wild when you say it like that. Now, what can we expect from season 3? Luxe Listing Sydney.
Some pretty sick houses.
Yep.
Some pretty cool drama. I mean, I think the thing with season 3 is, it's our third time around. Everyone's a lot more relaxed, a lot more comfortable, so a lot more ourselves. But you see some pretty epic houses. There's a bit of Delta drama, a little boat drama, everything you'd expect from Luxe Listings, right?
Yeah.
But the houses are sick.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you're a bit more relaxed this time around. Tell us about those couple of weeks leading into the first episode of season 1. Did you have a good gauge on how you were going to be presented, or were you a bit worried like a maths contestant might have been?
You know what? Gav, Deline, and I, we all went in this together, and we were really adamant to Amazon that we want to be portrayed as ourselves, and we all made a very concerted effort that when the cameras are around, we were ourselves, right? But when season 1 came out, like, you never know how they're going to edit shit, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen conversations I've had where they've been cut into something completely different. So you just don't know what to expect. And I got to say, I won't listen to this only because I cringe at the sound of my own voice, right? And I cringe at watching myself. So I don't enjoy watching that first season, but I was incredibly pleasantly surprised with how well they portrayed us as ourselves. But also, while we were filming, I got to say, the producers and the film crew, they're just legends. Yeah. And they really did a good job, and they treated us well, and they looked after us, and they never try to screw us over.
Yeah. Not like, as we said.
Not maths.
Not like the dating shows where they jam them full of champagne and turn them on each other. Well,
there was a bit of that on the boats.
Well,
You know, they'd be like, I'm so sorry the food's taking so long, but here's some cheap
Just some more
champagne.
champagne.
Yeah.
You're hungry, you're a bit seasick, and now you're
Actually.
full of champagne.
Yeah.
on camera, can you say this is sparkling white? Because, you know, we have a bit of a thing. But just one more question before we go, mate. What's the maddest house you've ever been in?
The maddest house I've ever been in. I'll tell you what I checked out the other day, that penthouse of Crown, that $100 million penthouse.
Yeah.
All right, that thing's pretty dope.
Yeah.
And then last week I went to have a look at a $100 million mansion, which is pretty cool.
In Sydney?
In Sydney.
100
Massive
million.
estate. Yeah, 100 mil.
Cronulla.
Yeah, not Cronulla. Look closer
There wouldn't
to
be
the city.
too. There wouldn't be too many of them left, would
There's
there?
a handful.
Couple on the points, on Darling Point, Point Piper.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a few of those.
The old house that Packer lived in. There's probably a couple of acres up on
The
Billy
old
Hill.
Fairfax
Pat-
estate.
Well, that's sold for 100, so that's probably more now. Packers is probably 150. So yeah, I've seen some pretty wild stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting times. We look forward to season 3, Luxe listing Sydney on Prime Video. Thanks for joining us, Simon.
Guys, thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, we'll see you down at Ravisi's.
Maybe. Don't hold your breath.